Comic Book Savant Extra, Episode 7. Welcome back to another episode of Comic Book Savant Extra. This is episode 7 of the Extra. So I've been keeping it going. Like I said, I'm having fun doing it. I can do little breakouts and cover things that I might not normally cover on the actual podcast through the extra episodes that I've dropped. And this is one of those said things. We have Solo, a Star Wars story. I had a chance to check out the movie this past weekend, so I figured I would do a spoiler review here. As always, if you're not familiar, over on the YouTube channel, which you can find at youtube.com/comicbooksavant, I do a non-spoiler review of the movie. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, stop this, head over to the YouTube channel, check out the non-spoiler review, and then once you had a chance to see the movie, if you decide to see the movie, then you can come back over and listen to this audio spoiler review. But with all that out of the way, let's jump right into it. We have Solo, a Star Wars story. It's directed by Ron Howard. It's written by Jonathan and Lawrence Kasdan. We know Lawrence Kasdan from him writing the phenomenal Empire Strikes Back. And the breakdown for the movie is as follows. During an adventure into a dark criminal underworld, Han Solo meets his future co-pilot Chewbacca and encounters Lando Calrissian years before joining the rebellion. And the cast is Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. We have Joonas Suamato, I think is how he pronounced it. I've seen him in an interview recently. I think that's how it is. As Chewbacca, we have Woody Harrelson as Beckett. We have Emilia Clarke as Cara. We have Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. We have Thandie Newton as Val, Jon Favreau as Rio, Phoebe Waller-Bridge as L337, and we have Paul Bettany as Dryden Voss. And right off the bat, I have to say this about the movie. We know it was many reports during the production of the movie about it was originally Lord and Miller were directing the movie. They shot about 3/4 of the movie, and when they were coming down the final stretch, them and Kathleen Kennedy came to an agreement to part ways. They left the film. They brought on Ron Howard. He then pretty much reshot about 80% of the movie, and you know, we had that whole thing. It still came out when it was originally proposed to come out. And we got this film. All in all, with all the productions, mishaps that they had behind the scenes that were made public, this turned out to be a decent movie. Is it the best Star Wars movie of all time? No. I had this was the one Star Wars movie that I didn't know I wanted till I got the movie. I wasn't saying, oh man, I would love to see a Han Solo story before the fact that they announced this movie. And then even after the fact they announced the movie, I wasn't overly stoked for it. Then I heard about the production problems. But then in finally sitting down, seeing the final product, I like the movie. I don't love it. I don't think it's a particularly great movie, but it's a good movie. I look forward to rewatching the film once it comes out on home video because it was fun, and I think they had some missteps and mishaps along the way in putting this story together. But I think they set some good seeds here and did a lot of fan service throughout the film and things that they referenced and things that we saw that I'm going to talk about later. Then it made it worthwhile. It was worth going to take the time to go see it at the theater. And they do set it up well for them to do a few future movies. Now, Alden Ehrenreich let it slip that he was signed for 3 solo films a couple of weeks before the movie premiered. An interview that he did, So, and once you see the movie, especially towards the end, we see that it's set up very nicely for a sequel. So it leaves it in a good place. And I feel like though this wasn't the best execution, I would like to see more of him, and Jonas was outstanding as Chewbacca, and their chemistry was like awesome. That was one of the stronger parts for me of the film, is Alden and Jonas's chemistry as Han Solo and Chewbacca. And this is the most active we've ever seen Chewbacca. We've heard different stories about, you know, how powerful and how great a warrior he was. We actually get to see all that on screen, which I feel like it points that this is very much more not just a Han Solo movie. It's very much a Chewbacca movie as well, because we get to see him in his prime do things we've only heard about or mentioned in like the original trilogy specifically. I think with Alden Ehrenreich and Donald Glover portraying two like iconic roles from the original trilogy of movies, they did a really good job with putting their own spin on the character, and at the same time adding little nuances, making it their own. I feel like sometimes the movie doesn't give either actor enough leeway with the characters, but if they're going to actually go through it doing a trilogy of movies, maybe we'll see that expand upon as the movies go along. So I can give it a pass for this movie. I think Ron Howard is a serviceable director, but I don't think I would want him to direct the sequel to this movie. And, you know, it was a lot of rumors going around before the movie even started production that the castings had this was the best Star Wars script that they have ever read, and they were so stoked on doing this movie based on this script and execution of the script. I felt like it was not the best script. It was clunky at parts, and I felt like a lot of things could have been executed way better. So I would definitely like to see a sequel to this movie with a different team of writers and definitely a different director. Not saying that Ron Howard he did the best job he possibly could do coming in off of the debacle that it was to make this a serviceable movie. But I feel like it's so much more potential here with the writing, because I feel like one of the biggest weaknesses of the film is the script. I think, like I said, Ron Howard did his thing, but I think at the point where he came in, he played it safe, and I felt like a little bit more risk and a little bit more chances could have been taken with the film. I think the cinematography is wonderful. This is one of the most stunning looking Star Wars movies. I definitely will say that. I thought Emilia Clarke as Cara was way better than expected. You know, like, she's been hit and miss. I love her on Game of Thrones, but her venture into different movies have been hit or miss that I've seen her in. So I was really surprised, and I really liked her chemistry with Alden, and and they definitely leave everything open in the end with her character, that she's still out there. So I would definitely like to see her come back in if they do future sequels. It remains to be seen at this point. You know, a lot of times they have actors signed to multiple films, but they don't get made. So it'll be interesting to see if they go that route. What they do with her character, since now she's in I can't remember what the syndicate is called. Is it the Crimson Sun? And we see that from the big reveal towards the end of the movie that Darth Maul, she works under Darth Maul and his crime syndicate. And so, we see that whole scene at the end where she's going off to meet up with him, and he says they're going to be working very closely. Now, and I was interested. It was interesting to see that they played the Darth Maul card, because a lot of fans, and if anyone has listened to the podcast any amount of time, I'm a huge fan of not just the Star Wars movies. I fell in love with the Clone Wars animated series, and they followed that up with Rebels. And for those who don't watch those animated shows, Darth Maul was brought back during the Clone Wars television show, and he was reintroduced during Rebels, where we see his ultimate demise at the hands of Obi-Wan. in the final season that we just had of Star Wars Rebels. I did a review of the Star Wars Rebels series on the YouTube channel as well, so you can definitely check that out. Where I was talking about the series and how it ties into the lore, and all that is canon. So it's a lot of things that if you are a fan of the movies and you only watch the movies, you're missing out certain things with certain characters, how characters were more fleshed out through these animated series. And Darth Maul is definitely one. He was resurrected through the series. He appeared in multiple episodes that will explain the Darth Maul that we get, that you see pop back up in this movie. For some people that haven't seen that stuff, they did not know Darth Maul was alive. So it could have been shocking or even jarring to see him show back up and be like, oh, I thought he died at the end of Phantom Menace. And they would be wrong because it's well documented. But again, it happened in different medium. And they did some certain stories for him that added to his lore in comics form as well that is available. So I might do a breakout episode just breaking down the different stories and the different, I'll have to do the research on what specific episodes that if you want to follow Maul's journey from where we last saw him in film at the end of the Phantom Menace to where he is now in Solo Star Wars story. I'll do that. If you want that, hit me up on social media or in the comment section on the website, or just shoot me an email at comicbooksavant@gmail.com and let me know if you guys want it. If you want it, I'll do all the research and I'll write it up and I'll do a breakout episode with all that you need to check out to see the history of Darth Maul between his film appearances, to kind of fill in some of those blanks. And this gap of time, which has been unaccounted for, which how they kind of set it up, makes me interested to see, are they going to do a Darth Maul movie somewhere down the road, or are they going to reappear in Solo at some point? We know that Maul can't have any direct contact himself with Solo because in New Hope, when he encounters Ben and Luke, that's his first exposure to anything with the Force. So we see in this movie that Solo never sees Maul, and so he doesn't have any indication that he's a Sith or was a former Sith at this point, because he's no longer a Sith Lord or Sith apprentice at this point. He's something totally different. So I don't know how that will play in if he reappears down the road in the Solo films, if there are more, but it's a whole bunch of ifs, and it just is. I think for non-fans, for movie only fans, some of the references they made were very cool for someone like me that watched that other material, but for fans that haven't, hopefully it works, that it doesn't turn them off and it makes them want to check out Clone Wars and Rebels and read the comics that are tied to it to get more of the story, and that doesn't confuse them. That's the only thing about how they did it. It was jarring, and the way it was set up was kind of clumsily, but I hope it sparks more interest than it turns more people off, but it remains to be seen. I really enjoyed the train heist sequence. I think that was the best action set piece in the film. I think the second one, because I really didn't like the whole spice mine heist, the main heist at the end of the movie. I didn't care for that nearly as much as I did the train sequence. Woody Harrelson was so awesome in that scene. I really, really dug that scene. I could just watch that part over and over again. And I really enjoyed the fight between Kira excuse me about my voice, Kira and Dryden Voss at the very, very end of the movie, where they go one-on-one. I thought that was a really well-done fight scene. The whole thing about the 12 parsecs, that whole thing, it was kind of boring to me. It wasn't nearly as exciting as I thought it was going to be. I could have kind of did without it. I mean, I guess it's cool to finally see it on film, but it wasn't, from how it was described to how it was executed in the film, it just was lacking for me. to be honest. And so the train sequence and the fight between Kira and Voss were the two standout action pieces for me. And I thought the chase at the very beginning of the movie was pretty well done as well. I thought Thandie Newton and Jon Favreau was a little underutilized. They died so quickly in the movie. I wanted to definitely see more of that initial Beckett group gang that Solo and Chewbacca, joined up with, to flesh them out a little bit more. And if they were going to do multiple movies, have that same team be the team that you roll with in this first film, and then maybe if you were going to kill those characters off, maybe do it in a sequel. It just seemed like they died way too quick, and to have an actress of Thandie Newton's level on there, especially with her being as hot as she is right now off of Westworld, to have her in such a minimal role, and Jon Favreau as well, even though he was just voicing the alien, I felt like he was a really interesting character that just died way too soon in the film. And I think, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, I think the character development was a little bit lacking at points. This movie showed how Han got his stuff more so than how Han became Han. I think it was his arc was very small in scale. The Han we get at the beginning of the movie, or Han. Now I'm making a mistake. The one we start with is the same one we kind of finish with at the end of the movie, and I thought it would be a little bit more arc, but maybe they're setting that up to happen through a trilogy of movies, that by the time we get to the end of the third Solo movie, where it will be closer to the events of New Hope, and then we'll have events that will take place throughout the next two movies that edge him more to, we're familiar to that character that we end up with in the cantina scene on Tatooine in A New Hope. I thought maybe it was going to be one and done, but it was clearly, you could tell as the movie went on, that they were setting this up for multiple films. But I guess it depends on the overall success of this film, on if we ever see a Solo 2 or 3. I hope so, because I think they have a good thing going with the basis of Alden, Jonas, and Donald Glover. They have and even Emilia Clarke, because she can turn into this ultimate big bad throughout the movies that he has to confront, in the third movie, so it's open, it's ripe for a lot of possibilities if handled properly, and I hope they do. Personally, another thing that bothered me about the movie overall, it was a little bit too light in tone for my taste. I would have liked it being a little slightly darker in tone. It was a little bit too light. But that's just my preference. But it can definitely, I guess you want to make it appeal to a larger audience. I don't feel like you had to make it so dark, like this is rated R. Like, no, but I just felt like it could have. This was a very safe movie. So, like I said, I would have liked if they took a little bit more risk in certain areas in the storytelling and the development of the characters, which they really didn't do. Some people, I think this character was the most divisive. L337. I could take a reliever. I thought it was a different take on the droid. I laughed at some of the stuff. Some people were totally, annoyed. Even in my viewing, her character kind of were hit or miss with the crowd. I didn't love her like like BB-8. BB-8. He's cute. Then you had the K2SO, which I love his character from Rogue One. She kind of falls somewhere in between where I could take her or leave her. Her relationship with Lando was very interesting. But all in all, I have to say this movie was different. It was different. And as I break down my rating, as I always do, I look at acting, which I say acting 7 out of 10, casting 7 out of 10, direction 7 out of 10, special effects 7 out of 10, story, 7 out of 10. Just give it the average score of 7 out of 10. Just everything was kind of on par. I felt like the acting was good. It wasn't great. Some of that goes to the story, that they didn't have much to work with, so it limited the actors. They did the best they could with the material they had. The special effects pretty much worked for the most part. It was a few scenes that were, was no mind blowing effects. I feel like the direction was safe and the casting was safe. All in all, like I said, it's a solid film. It's a good time. It's a good just sit back, relax, chill time at the movies. Getting that expansion of the Star Wars mythos and history and fleshing out, the characters in the world, which I feel like maybe they didn't flesh out the characters as much as I would have liked. They definitely fleshed out the world and like the mythos, by the worlds we saw and things of that nature, and different seeds that were planted here and connected to other media and other stories. So I really did like that part of the movie. I felt like that was executed nicely, tying it into the larger world of Star Wars. But that's all I really have to say about this film. So definitely, again, if you have someone that are considering to see the movie and seeing the movie but haven't seen it yet, definitely send them over to the YouTube channel, and or just go over to the YouTube channel yourself and just share that link over to them so they can see the non-spoiler review. I will be back later this week with another regular episode of Comic Book Savant, so be on the lookout for that as well. And that's all I have for you guys for this episode. You guys take care, and I will see you soon. Have a good one.